And fortunately, I am an amateur comic. Those of you who know me know that I like to dabble, and I'm sure the fact that we have 3 pros tonight will show you that what I do is truly dabble compared to pros that are seasoned and really have their act together. So with that being said, I just want you to know a little bit about me. I am Jewish. I was raised in Newark at a time when most Jews had left Newark. I was a token Jew amongst many Irish and Italian people. And it's painful growing up Jewish in a Christian world. Fortunately, we learn about pain at an early age with circumcision. And I will tell you, it's an interesting religion that mutilates the genitals of its sons and then has a party. No, my father was a Holocaust survivor, and he died a few years ago, and I've always loved German Shepherd puppies. But I could never bring myself to have one while he was alive because I thought it would be insulting and insensitive. But after he passed away, I finally caved in and I got a little cute German Shepherd puppy. But I'm a deeply sentimental guy, so I named him Auschwitz. My father was born in Poland in 1917, a Polish Jew. My God, I think the only way he could have experienced more prejudice was if he was a black Polish Jew. But he loved his heritage, and because we lived in a very Christian area, he always wanted to impart wisdom to me. And he told me as a young boy, Stevie, remember, Jesus saves, but Moses invests. And you know, when you're raised practical, when you're raised in a practical home, it's very difficult to forget that. I remember many years later, when I was about 20, I went to New York with a non-Jewish friend. And as we were walking from Port Authority to Madison Square Garden, a hooker came up to us. And she said, I'll do whatever you want for $20. My friend looked at her and said, come on, I'm going to do you in the alley. She looked at me and she said, what about you? I looked her right in the eye and I said, paint my house. And I will tell you, the concentration camps were horrible. It's a horrible time for Jewish people. It's a horrible time for the world. One of the worst times in history. But I do wonder sometimes how much easier it would have been for the Nazis to get the Jews, gypsies, gays, communists, and other undesirables to the camps if they took Club Ned's approach. Come to Club Dachau. Experience peasant living at its best. Be surrounded with hundreds of people just like yourself. Sign up for arts and crafts. Make a lampshade. Maybe some soap. Those of you that have a medical background, sign up for some genetic engineering or human experimentation. Lose pounds with a combination of active work and a low-fat diet. And remember, we finish every day with a memorable shower. Oh, okay. My wife's horrified. That's been in the repertoire for 10 years. She told me it was terrible. I never should do it. Obviously, she was right. But you know, everyone today is politically correct. And I have to tell you, I am tired of the political correctness. Talk about stereotypes, profiling, and handicapped people. That's right. I said it. Handicapped people. When I was a kid, a friend of mine, his parents were deaf. You know what we called them? Deaf. Another kid's grandfather was blind. You know what we called them? Blind. I didn't realize I was being such an insensitive ass at the time. Now today everybody's challenged or has special needs. Let me tell you something. If you're flying and you request a kosher meal, you have special needs. If you have a hard time asking the stewardess or flight attendant to serve you that meal, you may be challenged. But if someone has to cut that meal up and feed it to you, you're handicapped. That's just the way it is. And let's talk about today when you go out to a working lunch. There are stereotypes. Stereotypes are stereotypes because they're true. When is the last time you went out to lunch with an Irish person who ordered a non-alcoholic beverage? When's the last time you were at lunch with an Italian person that somehow wasn't connected? And when's the last time an Asian person had trouble dividing the check? And when is the last time the Jewish person picked up the check? I mean, let's face it, who wouldn't be shocked if you heard that the new heavyweight boxing champion was Jewish? Really, it's just something you have to think about. So I say embrace the differences. Embrace the humor in hiring a Jewish handyman. Or meeting an Asian kid in remedial math. Or a documented Mexican who bones chicken or cuts grass for a living. It just doesn't happen. And I have to tell you, my mother-in-law is Italian, and she's extremely upset by that show, Jersey Shore. She thinks it's horrible that any show that we put on the air to depict Italians being gabons is disgraceful. And I've said to my mother, I said, Mom, have you been to Seaside Heights? That's not a reality show, it's a documentary, for God's sake. And you know, with all the doctors here tonight, I have to say I'm very sensitive to malpractice. I heard a story about a guy that had a severed hand sewed on, and he sued the doctor because there was an unsightly scar. That's not malpractice. Last week I went in for surgery on my neck to have a herniated disc removed. Now, if I went in for that surgery and woke up with my left testicle missing, I'd have a case. Fortunately, my testicles are where they belong. The operation was a success, and I came to learn that the operation is pretty common. As a matter of fact, I was at a party recently, and another guy, an Italian gentleman, who happens to be connected and happens to be an enforcer, if you know what I mean, is talking to me, and he says, what happened to you? And I tell him I had a car accident, I got rear-ended. He goes, oh, that's a shame. I said, what happened to you? He says, I don't know, a shovel across the back, baseball bat across my shoulders, who the frig knows? So I left that discussion saying, wow, my operation is the result of an accident, while his is probably a workman's comp case. And you know, it is funny, I did have that surgery, and I was concerned, but not nearly as concerned as when I had my first colonoscopy. Now, people talk about that, they get very uncomfortable, they're very edgy. To me, the procedure itself wasn't all that bad. Preparing for it, however, was like eating a week's worth of bad Mexican food in one night. And I really have a feeling that's where the term, he shit his brains out, came from. I also have to tell you that I was never into the drug scene. It was not my thing. I know a lot of kids experimented. I was always too afraid. I can't control myself around Twinkies. I wasn't about to introduce cocaine into the equation. And I got to ask you, take one look at me. Marijuana, do I really need to get involved with a drug where a side effect is increased hunger? Thank you very much.